It's Wellness Wednesdays. It's Wellness Wednesdays. And before we get into the Wellness Wednesday topic, we are still on track to launch the Boss Fight Song of Sparkle Muffin crowdfund on Friday. There will be an additional video tomorrow with details about, final details about what to expect with that. Obviously, there will be stuff for patrons there. So if you want inside track information before anybody else gets it, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. But this is Wellness Wednesday. So we're going to pivot. And today we're going to talk about dichotomous thinking, because this has been something I have been having to fight off. It has been a very challenging period. People who have been following this content for a while know I got sick with shingles, and then I got sick with this annoying change of season asthma cough. And two sick animals, one who is better, one who is not yet. I've been woken up sometimes multiple times every night to deal with an animal with diarrhea. It has been awesome. And when you get tired, when you get worn down, and things get really hard, it's really easy to fall into the trap of everything is horrible, nothing is good. The alternative to that is everything is amazing and perfect and nothing can go wrong. And this is what is called dichotomous thinking, or black or white thinking, black and white thinking. And it's not, it may feel like a great rush at the time when you're on the highs, but overall it's not healthy. It's considered a cognitive distortion. It keeps us from seeing the world as it is, full of complexity and nuance and shades of gray and all that stuff. It prevents us from finding a middle ground. And I will go so far as to say, based on my experience, dichotomous thinking actually prevents real resolution of issues. If you put someone up on a pedestal, or you kick them off that pedestal, you de-pedestal them, that's not dealing with the nuanced reality of human beings. No one is perfect. No one is completely evil. Sometimes someone is not good for you, even though you can see their good points. Sometimes you want to keep someone in your life, even though they are immensely flawed. The thing about injecting nuance into conversations and interpersonal relationships is that nuance involves giving up a portion of control. And dichotomous thinking is linked to trauma. It's linked to conditions like BPD. Some people claim ADHD, though I'm not sure about that. I just read that somewhere. I know some people with ADHD who are absolutely great. They don't do this. I know other people with ADHD who have, yes, they do tend to think people are absolutely fantastic and great, and then all of a sudden they're terrible, and no. And some of these neurological issues, they can be helped with medication. They can be helped with different kinds of therapy, dialectic behavioral therapy. But we have to be kind to people who are struggling with these issues, who have a greater challenge regarding dichotomous thinking. The interesting thing in the reading I've done about this is that dichotomous thinking may be trained to an extent by our educational system. A system where you either get an A average and do all these over and above extracurricular activities, or, you're not going to get into a decent college and you're going to be nothing your whole life. Well, that is inducing all or nothing thinking, right? It's inducing either you have to be a complete overachiever or an utter failure, and there is no in between. So that's why I want to talk about this stuff, because there are some things about our culture and culture wars that induce this sort of thinking. The other thing that they've linked to dichotomous thinking is this idea of hard and fast in groups and out groups. And of course, in group good, out group bad. And, it's okay when we do it thinking is linked to dichotomous thinking, because if someone's in the in group, they are perfect and flawless. And if someone's in the out group, oh, get them, they must be struck down where they stand, right? That's not life. That's not rational. Does it mean that people don't do it all the time? Oh, absolutely not. People do it all the time. And being depedestaled from someone who is engaging in black or white thinking can be really scary, because it is an intense struggle for control in the person doing the all or nothing dichotomous thinking and making you the target of it. And so obviously it is a feeling of intense lack of control, to the person being depedestaled, or as in colloquial parlance, canceled. This is basically what happens when someone is canceled. It is group dichotomous thinking, that it isn't just simply this person made a mistake and needs to do some work. It's this person committed this unpardonable sin and is therefore evil and must be wiped off the face of, the earth where anybody can see them. And so I think you can understand why I'm talking about dichotomous thinking as something that's a product of culture that is induced in otherwise, hate to use the word sane, but otherwise functional. There we go, functional people. And this isn't just the province of people with, really serious mental health challenges. And again, I don't like taking people with serious mental health challenges and making them seem like an out group. Human experience exists on a spectrum, and psychological diagnoses are just intended to create a course of treatment. They shouldn't be used to label someone as defective or as outgroup. And too often, because of another form of dichotomous thinking, people just split people into people we assume are sane and then people with a diagnosis. And that's wrong, because someone with a diagnosis in treatment is at least learning how to live with their personal reality. Someone who is avoiding a diagnosis because they don't want to seem crazy, well, they're at the mercy of whatever's going on with them, right? But unfortunately, there are, many people who are in the military diagnosed with PTSD who really struggle to find work because of that diagnosis, just the military status. I hear from a lot of veterans that say, especially in the US, that say, employers say, you're a veteran, thank you for your service, but you all have PTSD. We don't need you going postal in our company. I'm sure that it wasn't that blunt, but that was the impression they were left with. We are pretty shitty to our ex-military. We ask people to go to a completely different part of the world and engage in stuff that obviously in day-to-day life people don't do, and then we expect them to come back and with only a few months transition be right back to a society that is in a war zone. And when you put it that way, it's ridiculous, right? But that's another form of dichotomous thinking, right? While you're over there, well, you're back now. You're back now, everything's fine. But it's not. People need time. People need shades of gray. People need levels. People, it's not you're either level 1 or level 80. right? Like in a video game, we level up and go through the various stages of get good. But so often in life, there is no get good. There's you're either good or you're a failure. And that's it seems every attempt to on a mass scale solve that problem makes it worse because of course anything attempted to be solved on a mass scale lacks nuance in and of itself. And so you get these things. I remember one of the things that annoyed me in school was in gym class. There was a gymnastics unit, and I was in competitive dance, and I was part of what I took was acrobatics, and so I was way ahead of most of the kids in the class, and so the teacher actually had me teaching students how to do uh, certain moves, certain skills. And at the end of the unit, I only got an 8 out of 10 when students I taught got a 10 out of 10. And I was like, what? And the teacher said, well, 20% of your mark is improvement, and you showed no improvement. Goddamn true ass story. I wish I was kidding or exaggerating on that one. But there was an example of someone who didn't think with nuance. Didn't go, yes, this particular student has not improved, but that's because I have nothing to teach them. So who is going to impart skills to this person who came in ahead of the curve? Why don't we reward them for helping other students improve? That would be nuanced shades of gray thinking, right? But that's not what this gym teacher did. Good lesson for life. I had much better teachers in other subjects. I had a wonderful English teacher. Shout out to Mr. Connor from C.W. Jeffries back in the day. He actually gave me 100% in English. Perfect score in English. In a creative writing class I took in my senior year. And he apparently actually had to defend the mark because who gets 100 in English? No one is perfect in English. And this guy who I had some wonderful teachers in high school. I was incredibly lucky. But this guy basically argued, yeah, because there is no such thing as perfection, what we are grading is what we can expect someone to be at this point. And, he argued, I don't see how she could have done better in any way based on what she turned in. And, that it wasn't the 100%. It was the, this just occurred to me now. Maybe this is why, but it was the justification for the 100% that made me feel like someone actually thought I was good at something, right? Not perfect, but really good at something. And there's a huge difference for me to feel like somebody thinks I'm perfect, meaning they're putting me up on an artificial pedestal, which danger zone, deeply uncomfortable. And somebody who sees, yeah, I'm not perfect, but I'm really damn good. Those are the people I want in my life. Not people who run you down or do crazy stuff to make you think your stuff is shit. I've heard some whoppers of stories of things people have done trying to make people better, and they never do. They just damage them because these stories aren't even criticism. They're like, you did what? And I won't share any stories because I don't want to betray a confidence, but there are a few that come to mind right now, and I'm just like, those people are like, oh, they were trying to help me. Well, that's nice. Did it actually help you, or did it just give you a massive case of imposter syndrome? If I talked about imposter syndrome, let me know if you want me to talk about imposter syndrome. But that feeling of, because anything with subjectivity, there's no such thing as perfection. So what is a mark out of 100 in an incredibly subjective subject? This is what this high school teacher taught me by arguing in my defense. And it stuck with me in that, my mantra, I care more about why you believe the things you do than what you believe. And I've been greatly enriched by other people from that point of view, because it allows me to take in stuff I'd otherwise reject. And, all or nothing thinking, dichotomous thinking, you may think that it's pushing you towards excellence, gotta be number one. The truth is that while that may be true in the short term, long term, you're going to end up further behind, because your mental health is going to suffer. Your physical health, I'm living proof, is going to suffer. That's a really frustrating thing for me, because at this point in my life, I know I'm wrecking myself. I know I'm doing damage to myself, and I constantly have to balance the projects I work on and care about with the reality that the schedule I set for myself is making me sick. And the struggle for balance is an ongoing one. I obviously mess that up a lot. And I'll admit that the calculus I use is, if I have given my word on something, if I have set a deadline or a schedule for something, I will knock the stuffing out of myself to meet it, knowing that the next time, don't set us such a punishing schedule for yourself, idiot. From Lady Bits to boss fight, I thought I was giving myself a lot more time. I gave myself twice the time on boss fight than Lady Bits. More than that. Little did I know it was going to be 5 times the work, conservatively, right? Live and learn. This is what experience does. You can't learn from experience if everything is complete success or abject failure. And it's really hard to keep that in perspective when you get run down physically, when you are exhausted, when you're not sleeping, when you're not eating right, when, you're not getting the right kind of exercise, because over-exercise, as I've found the hard way, can really mess you up as well. But you end up self-sabotaging if you are too consistently rough on yourself. And I say this as a lifelong self-ass kicker. I am really rough on myself. I am trying to do better on that. Because for a lot of years, I thought I basically had to outsmart my worst critics and beat myself up before they could, to try to outrun it or outsmart, my detractors. And what I learned through experience, learned through the hard way, is you can eliminate 9 sources of criticism and someone will find the 10th. People will just twist what you do and extrapolate and dichotomize. And you can't control that. The number of pop culture things where I have sat back and had, insider information on things, the whole Joss Whedon thing, when people talked about that dude as if he was some kind of god, and I had to sit there going, because I tried to mount a defense based on physically available information, like, hey, sex with Buffy turned Angel evil, that's kind of misogynist, and then, hey, what did he do for an encore? He set Buffy up with a serial murderer in Spike, whose first victim was his own mother. These are not isolated incidents. anymore, and the fact that all these slayers are like crazy skinny twig arm, the amount of force it takes to drive a wooden stake into someone's chest is probably not physically possible for a 110-pound, 5'3" little thing. Let's think about this, and people wouldn't hear it because everybody had put Joss Whedon and his product up on pedestals, no matter how increasingly openly and grotesquely misogynistic he got. And then it all came down, and now everybody's like, oh, he's a dirtbag, but the signs are friggin' there, right? That's just one example. But then there are examples of people I know to be good people, flawed, but good people, and I just see them getting trashed by the media and by social media. And it's hard. It's hard to watch a friend get canceled. And, you can support them through it, and you can, offer what information you can, knowing that people are not going to listen. I don't think it gets any easier. What it does get is more predictable. You can honestly tell people that, look, this isn't going to last. You can move on. You can move past this. Mel Gibson's still getting work, for fuck's sake, which Hollywood is not fair, right? But, there are other people who just chose to do other things. Apparently Dave Chappelle's taken a bit of a break now because he's got a documentary about a comedy special he did in a cornfield in support of the Black Lives Matter efforts after George Floyd was killed, that no festival will take because of the Netflix controversy. Now, whether you consider that just predictable consequence or whether you consider that unfair or unjust, that's up to you. I see both sides. But, he's saying he's not going to do streaming comedies specials for a while. He will probably be back. Dave Chappelle has taken a break before and come back. Time will tell. It is never the end. Failure is a stepping stone, not the finish line. And that's something that is really hard to keep in mind when you are exhausted. I've been there many, many times, and I don't know, maybe because I love the Rocky movies. It's just that get back up instinct. But there were times I thought I was going to stay down with all of this stuff. Being told when I was barely over 30 that because of my age and my gender, it was just not possible for me to have any sort of career in game dev. That was hard to hear. And the people that told me that were not trying to hurt me. They were trying to be honest with me. And it's true. It is harder when you start later, and when you belong to certain identity groups. It shouldn't be, but it is. Keep in mind that the people that told me this stuff were people that this was going on while all the Blizzard Activision stuff was not public, but full force. The other problem in gaming is the entry-level positions are such that they don't hire you if you seem overqualified. Oh, the times I've applied to Ubisoft and just didn't even get a phone call back, and they hire some 20-something cute little girl. She looks great in their promotional videos, but no way she had the knowledge and qualifications that I do. But overqualified for an entry level job, right? And I called out Ubisoft on that just because that was a company I thought, hey, maybe I'd want to work there. But they're no different than any AAA developer in that way. So you make your own path, right? You don't, this failure is real, but the overall status of failure is temporary. Every failure is the next step towards success. There's actually a boss fight game character based on that. Played for laughs, but that's sort of the mantra of this character, that no matter how much he crashes and burns, hey, that didn't work. Now we know not to do that again. One step closer to victory, right? And it's been fun kind of conceptualizing that character because it's just so positive to the point of absurdity. And sometimes it's okay to overdo something, trying to balance out an extreme view you may have, like a dichotomous view you may have. It's totally fine to oversell the opposite of that dichotomous view you're trying to rewire. I haven't found any other way to do it other than charging myself up with a hilariously ridiculous polar opposite to the negative dichotomous thoughts. I don't have problems with, oh, everything's great, everything's perfect, what could possibly go wrong? I never fucking feel that way. It's always the other way for me. And so I have to find, you know, that grapple point that you can hit, like, what is, like, say, depending on the game, R1 or L1, and, you know, use the grapple point to get yourself across. You got to create that for yourself, because otherwise you stay down. And, you know, is that really an option? Maybe in one particular path. You know, I talk about the fact that I don't involve myself with comic book stuff or just, you know, local fandom stuff in general. I do not involve myself the way I used to because it was toxic and it was not good for me, and I was bullied, and I chose to walk away because why? What a waste of time. But did I stop and do nothing? No, I applied my energies to something else. And that's the problem with dichotomous thinking, right? It's either stop or start. There's no direction. You're looking at life like a 2D fighter instead of a 3D fighting game. And obviously the tactics are very, very, very different in those two, you know, gameplay modes. Even, you know, if you look at maze games, for lack of a better term, like the original Doom was essentially a series of mazes. Pac-Man is a series of mazes, but you have a whole other dimension to the graphics, and that changes your tactics, right? And that's what dichotomous thinking does, is it takes away that third dimension. And so you're trying to play Doom like Pac-Man, or you're trying to play Tekken or Soul Calibur like Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. Well, the Mortal Kombat games that were 2D. Again, very different tactics. And that's not me throwing shade on 2D fighting games. I love them, right? Or I did before they got all stupid and anti-woman. But, you know, if life is in 3D, you don't play in 2D. And that's what dichotomous thinking does. It takes away those other dimensions. It takes away those other directions that you can explore. It's like taking away a sense, right? Like all of a sudden you can't see, or all of a sudden you can't hear, or all of a sudden you can't smell, right? That leaves you at a disadvantage. So to recap, if you want to try to short circuit dichotomous all or nothing thinking, challenge yourself with absurd statements in the other extreme and see if you can't find a middle ground. Okay? Thanks for watching. Watch tomorrow for boss fight, Kickstarter stuff. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.